up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drip, yeah, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shady, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Those shade, that's a no, no, no.
Beforehand, I think we have a nice group of people here. This is gonna be fun. So, my name is Steve Migliore. My producer name is Mr. Mig. I've been in the music business since the year 1998. I've been involved in over 400 commercially released projects, 60-time #1 on the Billboard charts as a songwriter, remixer, producer, engineer. And I think that sums it up. TV composer. There's also most of them. I don't know. This guy.
That's a wow factor.
All right. Hello. My name is TJ Chapman. I'm basically like a make it happen man. You know, I wear a lot of different hats in the music industry, and shoot, just trying to stay relevant. Since I started back in 1984, I've had to learn and do a whole bunch of things to just still be here. You know, so I do management, manage B.O.B, responsible for finding an artist named T-Pain. Well, worked with a lot of artists over the years, from your Lil Johns to Yin Yang Twins to, but just a lot of stuff, you know, and just glad to be here.
Welcome, TJ.
I'll preface this by saying I had 2 root canals before I got here, so if I drool, mumble, or say something stupid, just blame it on my dentist. My name is Issy Sanchez. I'm a 43-year industry veteran. I've had 5 years at Atlantic Records, 2 years at Columbia Records. I own my own company now for 28 years. I work for every single major label in the country, a ton of indies. I work most of the records that he mentioned. I've worked most of the records he's produced. He doesn't look like a hip-hop gangster guy, but he is, believe me. I worked directly for Kelly Rowland, Cash Money for 22 years, Fat Joe, Sean Paul, Shaggy, the Marley Family, and a plethora of other artists.
So, yeah, thank you. So the importance of this panel is, as you know, film and music, go hand in hand in this day and age. And a lot of what's going on right now is a lot of projects that are being shot are missing the envelope when it comes to the music that they put into their films. They're missing the opportunity of, speaking to a panel. I can tell you, I've been to a lot of film festivals, a lot, and they've never had a music panel like this. I mean, you're talking to industry veterans who understand what the business means. Let me ask the panel this first question. How does someone submit their music to you? And what is it you look for in the music? A lot of you guys are transitioning, into the film side of things right now, from producing to placement. What does it take for someone to bring up a record to you? And what are you looking for in that record? Migs, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all have something to say. I mean, honestly, for me, it's the originality, obviously. I don't like when someone says, hey, I have this record and it sounds just like 1, 2, 3, whatever's on the radio. I'm like, there already is one, so we need to see like who you are. So first of all, I think it's originality, and that's my first thing. How about you?
Yeah, I think the main key to music in general is to be able to be distinctive, and that's the #1 thing when you see new artists break through or be successful, whether it's an artist or as a producer. That's the key, and that's what gives you longevity. And it's important for you to be able to be commercially significant, but you also have to be distinctive so that you can stick around, and people forget that.
Yep.
To add to that, I look for potential. The potential of the project to succeed, the potential of the artist to turn it into a career. A lot of one-shot artists who come in and either have a lot of talent and no money, a lot of money and no talent, and you're trying to find that happy medium at times. It's a very difficult thing to do. So for me, it's about the potential to start a project and see it through to the end, and to have the patience to see it through. Because if I'm not mistaken, Rick Ross had 8 shitty records before he hit it with his big record, Hustler. So it takes patience, and it takes somebody with financial structure and creativity to see it through for a longer period of time.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that. To have longevity in this game, you really have to have your own sound and style. And so I tell people every day the music game is oversaturated and there's no room for you. So if there's no room for you, how do you get in? You get in by creating your own lane. And all your favorite artists, pretty much everybody that has any longevity in the game has their own sound and style. And if you're a fan of them, nobody has to tell you that this new song is theirs because you know it when you hear it. And so I look for people with their own sound and their own style. And then that pulls me in to make me want to look at more. But then from there, I look at work ethic. Because no matter how good you are, if you don't, everybody, like, we can all want it, but it takes a special person to make it in this business, and everybody's not built for it.
This is Mr. Mig. Peace out.
Building
Later.
off what TJ said, as us on the panel, if we see that we wanted more for you than you want for yourself, then that's a bad sign. And I've seen that, like I've had artists approach me and different things, and when I ask them to start doing stuff and they won't do it, or they're late, or they're come up with a lot of excuses as to why they can't do something and it's really going to benefit them, then you realize, like, okay, you're in the wrong game, you know. I don't know what game you should be in, but this is not the right one.
Right. What, well, with that being said, I certainly agree with all 4 of you up here. What is, a lot of people were asking, in fact, this came up to me yesterday, and they're coming now, but they wanted to ask you guys directly, if they wanted to bring a project to you to help them get it to a film, or have you help work on their film musically, how could they do that? Whether it be production, getting an artist that you have on their movie, or helping write or produce, or for Issy up here being a soundtrack supervisor, what would you look for in that approach for them to come to you to work with them?
Well, first it has to be somebody who's hot, obviously. Somebody who's going to draw an audience. They don't want to put people on soundtracks unless they have an audience. They want to make the soundtrack bigger. Again, it's difficult for me because I deal with finished product and I'm not doing the placements as much. I'm trying to find something or an artist who's already going to fit the bill, fit the mold of what they're looking for. So it's a little hard for me. Maybe easier for Mr. Mig, who has a production company.
Yeah, I mean, if what you're asking is how does somebody come to me and say, hey, I have this song, I want to get it into a film, can you help me? Is that the question?
Well, in 2 parts. How do they get it up? How do they get it to you? And how do they get it to you? And also, how do they get you to work on their film as well? And that's a question for all 4 of you.
Well, getting the music to me is easily. I mean, I'm very approachable and like accessible through my websites. I mean, I have 4 different websites. People email me all the time. I take everything basically case by case, depending on what I have going on with my own, like behind the scenes right now. If I'm involved in a TV show or involved in a movie, and I already know that someone has a song like that or is presenting a song that could work for it, I'll place it. I actually did one this year for Hallmark, where I was working for a company and they're like, hey, we need songs like XYZ. I thought about somebody who actually did just submit a few songs to me, and I said, I think I have a song that someone submitted to me. And I went, and it got placed the same day. A Hallmark movie came out over Christmas, so that's not an everyday thing. I mean, typically with the movie companies, they usually come through like a middleman who then approaches the production company and says, hey, we have this film and here's the treatment, here's the scene. Either do you have anything like that, or within 24 hours can you create something like that? So it's not uncommon that I've called on even local artists that I've worked with that said, hey, keep me in mind. And I'm thinking about it like, you know what, who would be good for that? This person would be good for that. Let me call them up. I'm going to put together a track. They're going to write on it. We're going to record it, and we're going to submit it. And it's happened where I've closed, 5-figure deals in 24 hours doing that. And there's other times where we've gone through that whole process of submission, and nothing happens. That's part of the game. But as far as like submitting to me like if you have something, I'll always listen and I'll always think like, hey, I can maybe hit up this supervisor for something like that. But typically they come to me when they have like a definite scene that they need something for. So, and as far as like having me work on a film, it's the same thing. Just and I can give out contact information just after this, or I can talk with each one of you after this. That's fine too. But it's the same thing. Like if it's something that we can work well together on and it makes sense, then why not? Is that?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay.
That's perfect. TJ?
Ask the question one more time for me, make sure I got it right.
Well, I actually specifically for you, because you deal with artists and you deal with a lot of big artists. If someone came to you, if someone needed music for their film and they came to you and said, TJ, can you get B.O.B on a soundtrack, or can you provide music for this film? What would that take?
A little credibility, first off, to know whatever it is or whoever it is legit. And then from there, I mean, it just depends. It's like when you talk about B.O.B, it has to be something, with a budget, something that's something. I can't just send unreleased music to people, that's a problem. And then even when I do send it, they're going to have to license it and spend a certain amount of money. As far as other artists or my other artists, it's a lot easier because the expectations aren't the same, and neither is the track record. So just getting placed in a movie or on a soundtrack, and to be honest, going back to B.O.B, that's how we kept gas in the tank before we ever had a hit. We used to license music. We had music in Fight Night, the game, NBA Live, Grand Theft Auto. Man, it was like about six games. All the different companies would license the music. Nintendo licensed one of Bob's songs for their Christmas campaign. But we made so much money off licensing before we ever made any money off selling anything. And so I just think that's that's a revenue stream that a lot of artists miss out on. People trying to get into music, everybody's always trying to go after the same bag. And there's a ton of different revenue streams that you can get money from with not half the amount of competition. Everybody's going the same route, so it's like, if you try all these different ways, you can keep making money, even if it's not with a hit record or not going out on a tour or whatever, but at least you can pay your bills doing what you love.
Those sync licenses that he's talking about, I use to help promote the artist. It's opening up the world to another audience that you normally wouldn't have. So, like I said, I get finished product. When the Summit or Lionsgate calls me to work a soundtrack and market it, it's already a finished product. When other people call me, it's to find artists who are hot now that they want to get ahead of the curve before they cost too much money when they get to him. And hopefully they'll grow with that artist, and that artist will be a part of their project.
Okay, perfect. Soren, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, for me, as somebody that's written and produced things that have been on television, and I'm working on getting that into film now, for me, if someone were to approach me to be a music supervisor or to help them get artists different things, it's a combination of what everybody said, but I think similar to what we were saying with the music, that if I'm going to go to artists that I know that are gold or platinum records, or that are just popular, they have to believe in the project, they have to understand that they're going to get paid and all these different things. So it's not a matter of necessarily all the time do I think it's good. I have to approach different artists. So if I'm going to try to get an exhibit to be on it, he's got to is this movie against something that he's for? He's not going to want to do it. So you have to always factor those type of things in and see what makes sense, and don't look at it like, I just want somebody that's super popular or super this or super that, if what you're doing isn't in line with what they're doing. So that's just something to think about. It's very important. And it sounds like common sense, but a lot of people have approached me over the years, and I'm sure the rest of everybody up here, and they just didn't think of that. You know.
Noel's in the lobby.
Oh, you bring him in?
Or text him, please. Sorry, guys. So, listen, for the filmmakers, for all the filmmakers, which everybody here is a filmmaker, one of the things you have to respect and understand from what they're saying when it comes to budgets, legitimacy, what it is you're trying to do, make sure that you have everything kind of in place, right? Have all your ducks in a row before you come to one of these guys. Not that they won't, you know, these guys are extremely busy, I can tell you, and it's not that they won't respond or listen, just they have very little time for, you know, helping you create your project as well, because they're all working on their things. And it's just, you know, I don't know if you were in the panel the other day with me and Vivica when we were talking about just being prepared, right? Just be prepared. So when you come to them and you're asking them for help, it's legitimate, and you have a budget, you have an idea of what it is you're looking for. All of these guys have a network that extends very, very deep. If they can't get to the person directly, trust me, they know who can. And that's the beautiful thing about being in touch with these guys. And you're talking covering from the East Coast to the West Coast. My next question is for Issy specifically. Yeah. next question is for Issy. When it comes to placing records on a soundtrack, and you know what, actually TJ can touch on this a little bit too. When it comes to placing records on a soundtrack, what are the filmmakers, what is the biggest thing that they have to look for in terms of licensing or publishing, or what are some of the obstacles that they're going to face in trying to get, you know, a known artist as opposed to an unknown artist?
The thing is samples. Because a lot of people forget that you can't just put out records, and when you're dealing with a film especially, there's so many more layers to what's going to happen that needs to be approved and gone through. And you really don't want to get caught sampling and not have cleared it, or not have told them there's a sample.
They'll stop it.
They'll not only stop it, but it'll linger, is a polite way to say that, with everybody that's involved. So you do not, if you are going to try to get music that you've created and you've sampled, you got to get all that stuff done, because you want to, you want to stay ready. So you don't want to have your shot and then screw it up because you didn't clear a sample, or because you didn't think of paying the producer or whatever it is, because that type of trouble will have much bigger ramifications for you as you try to progress.
Yeah, and one other thing that's really important, because you guys are indie filmmakers, correct? Mostly?
Yeah.
When you're doing your soundtracks, or you're doing your music for different scenes, I think there's been a lot of issues where companies don't really make sure they either buy the rights to the music that they're using, or do a solid agreement with the music makers from day one. They worry about it after they said, hey, I asked my friend, he said that he's going to do the album, and he's going to do the soundtrack, he's going to give me his music, and then the film comes out, and none of that stuff is taken care of, and you find out there's other people that were involved in the making of that music, and then all of a sudden you spent $400,000, $500,000 on an indie film maybe, or whatever, and now you've got to take the soundtrack apart again because you didn't check that stuff at the beginning. So you have to either own the exclusive rights to the music that you're using, or you just have to make sure that you take care of all the music contracts and agreements from day one before you decide to put it into your film, because it's going to cost you a lot more to redo it and or not redo it, and then find out later that you didn't have rights to use the music in the first place, and now you can get into some kind of legal issue. So that's that. I think it's a big one. I mean, I've seen problems in the past with other companies doing that. So
Absolutely.
then they got to go back and pull the movie because they got to redo the soundtrack now.
Right.
It happens with music everywhere.
Yeah.
Not just with movies.
Right.
Samples gotta be clear.
Yeah.
People have to get paid for all right, and you get paid.
Right. Okay, we're gonna, and I still have a few more questions, but I know you guys have some questions as well, so we're gonna open up the floor a little bit for some questions. So, all of you guys, don't be afraid. Who's got the first question? Go ahead.
So, you're talking about obtaining rights to music used in films. Can you sort of explain the process of that? Of, say, getting like a small film and using like a small band that isn't like big or really popular?
Well, I mean, they may not be now,
Yeah, exactly.
but they could be after you release your film and you don't do the proper paperwork, and then they come back and say, hey, I didn't give you the rights to use that. Now I want $50,000 per each song that you used in the film. So, I mean, it's really as simple as that. I own a music licensing website called MaxxBeats, MaxxBeats.com. And my company licenses music out to filmmakers and also to like recording artists, or we sell the copyright outright depending on the situation. So somebody might come and say, hey, we have this project, we want to buy like 20 of these instrumentals, plus we need a songwriter to finish them up, and we go through the contractual work and make sure that it's either all theirs, or we work out something where they have like continuous rights for perpetuity along with us on the project. So it really can be case by case situation too, however whatever situation you end up in with whatever artist or production company you're working with. Just make sure though that you don't say, hey, it's just a small artist or it's a friend of mine, we're gonna worry about it after we do the movie. Things change a lot of times with people when they see that your film got picked up by somebody and now there's this distribution, there's a budget, people can change. They can say, yeah, it was cool back then when I wasn't doing anything, but now we have some things going on, so how much are you gonna give us to license the songs now? It's like you should have done that stuff right from day one.
Small or big, all songwriters have to have their songs administered by a publishing company. So either CSAC, BMI, or ASCAP are all administering songwriting performance rights for these artists. So you couldn't use it unless you contacted them and made a deal with them for publishing splits or any other deals to buy it outright, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Come on, you guys.
Is there
Are there any musicians in here?
so I'm writing a short film and I'm composing it myself. Is there something that I should be doing, some kind of like framework or structure that I should be operating within after I've completed the music for my film and I submit it into film festivals and try to use it? Because I'm writing the film, so do I need to reach out to anybody about the music, get it licensed for something or something like
Same
that?
thing I said before, ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC as a songwriter. You sign up with those organizations for your performance rights, and anytime that song is used, you get paid for it.
Okay, great.
Anybody else have anything to add to that? Okay.
Hey, musicians that are in the room, this is a very rare opportunity to have leaders in the music industry here right now. So take advantage and please ask many, many questions.
Go ahead, and then I will get to you, Brent. Sorry.
No, you're good, man.
Yeah, we pushed to the back over there.
It's just me. Come on, go ahead.
So you spoke about how to get music in your film and licensing and all that. How do you become an artist? Like, how should I start?
Well,
That's a loaded
it's not that it's loaded, it's just not the same for everybody. So how do you become an artist? Well, first of all, I think personally that you either are an artist or you're not an artist. The first thing is to admit it to yourself that I'm an artist. I tell this story that I didn't know I was a lyricist till I wrote my first song. It's as simple as that. So I didn't know that I was a pianist till I pressed the piano for the first time, the key at my neighbor's house when I was 7. That's not even a question. You either know that you're an artist or you're not an artist. Are you an artist?
Yes, I sing.
Okay, you sing. Do you write?
A little.
Okay, so you're a little bit of a writer. Do you play any instruments? Have you recorded any songs yet? That's your next step. Next step is to meet a lyricist or a composer, or look for a production company online. It's one of the things that we do. We collaborate with artists, I think in over 180 countries as of now. And basically they come to us and say, hey, we have a song concept. We know what kind of track we want done. We need some help with some lyrics, or maybe they have the lyrics already. But really, to become an artist, you're either an artist or you're not. The next step for you is to get one song written. Just get one song written, get in the studio, record it. That's it.
Okay.
That's.
Are you looking forward to making it a career?
Yeah.
You could get everything from choreography to vocal lessons, collaborations with Grammy-winning songwriters. There's a lot of things available for you, both online and through contacts, that you could utilize if you want to be serious about it. You're not going to sit down with a Grammy-winning songwriter if you're not serious about your career, because nobody's going to take you there. So you have to show that drive and desire to be successful, and attitude and ego and everything else that comes along with being a successful artist. You can ask him, he knows he had a couple.
I mean, the thing that I do at the same time while you're doing all that stuff that they suggested is make sure you're building your socials. You know, the social media game is so important nowadays, and I get tired of saying it, but like the music is really becoming secondary, and it's about these fans and these kids and these people out here actually connecting with you and finding you interesting or funny or sexy or beautiful or, you know, whatever it may be. And then once you pull them in, you can get them and introduce them to the music. So as you're working on that stuff, work on developing your whole brand, because your social media and really Instagram, like that's a platform that you're creating for yourself that allows you to push out whatever you want to whoever and to push them wherever. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, for me, that's something I spend time in, I spend money, you know what I'm saying? Because that's my platform. And anything I want to do, whether it's a new song, new artist, an event, I can push out and let everybody know right there. And that's everything, you know.
He's talking about engagement. It's getting an audience and having that audience engage with you because they like you, and utilizing that fan base to further your career. When you call out that army on Instagram to say, hey, my record's playing on Y100 in Miami, call the station and request my record and go online, that's you utilizing them to help market you. So he's absolutely right. That audience engagement and building an audience sometimes comes before the music. But the music better be good, or else there will be no engagement. Or a marriage. Or a divorce.
I got a question. It's not about becoming an artist, but stopping to be an artist, stopping all of that. I recently retired from touring. I have just about $250,000 worth of studio equipment packed up in road cases, and I am looking to move more towards engineering and mix engineering. What kind of advice would you guys have for somebody in that situation?
What is the first part of it? I mean, you're stopping being an artist.
Yeah, I'm not touring. I'm too old for that crap anymore.
Okay.
We sold
I get it. No, I get
60 million records in the mid 2000s.
Wow. What band?
Rehab.
Okay.
We just had one hit wonder kind of thing.
Wow.
But I never really paid much attention to the business side of things back then. I've done some engineering and producing, and my thing was always just pay me. I don't care if my name's on the record, just pay me.
Okay.
And now I'm transitioning out of that, and now it's more, put my name on the record, and I want 2 points on the back end. And
Sure. Different, it's you evolve. You evolve different ways. You change. Your goals change.
Right.
So what is the second part of it? What's the question about the engineering part?
Well, I'm in contact with a couple consulting firms for studio design, so I plan to put something together here, whether it's just a private studio. I don't think I want to be open to the public or anything. I can choose who I'm going to work with. But as far as making that transition and actually getting some work coming in, that's the big thing, is not having the name recognition with, oh yeah, that guy's a producer, oh yeah, that guy's a good engineer. So some advice there.
But you're not thinking about doing like a local business?
Opening a studio.
It would be a private studio.
Because you said it would be private, you wouldn't be opening up to the public.
Well, there again, I get to pick and choose who I want to work with. I don't have people knocking on the door, hey, can I record?
Yeah, I mean, you can do it both ways. I mean, I have an actual commercial studio in Jersey, and it like ranks number one on Google, and I would get calls off the hook, and I kind of still pick and choose who I want to deal with.
So it would be that kind of thing.
And it's pretty cool to see somebody who you just thought was going to be a session, and then a few years later they're a superstar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Taylor Swift was one of mine. So, who knew? Who knew 5 years later after producing some records on her? What's that?
Scott Bushetta, almost like.
Well, I know her. So,
I mean,
the thing is, like, you don't know who's going to come in. You don't know what's going to end up.
Well, it's more of the I enjoy mixing. That's my forte.
Same.
Is the mixing.
One of my fortes.
So and I I use a hybrid system. I mean, I still use a console, but it's all run through the HD.
Box. Yeah. So I mean, what's the real challenge that you're I still haven't gotten the real challenge yet. So about how to build the studio business.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the first thing is, 2019 for me, the last 7 years was Google. Google is how I made my 2 studios. I had 2, ranking #1 in Jersey, and just was never not busy. So I would definitely say, and this goes for artists. I mean, really for anything at this point, you have to embrace where you are, what decade you're in right now, and what is the means for attracting people. So like they're talking about social media is one. So you start your business and you try to bring in people through your social media that you're an engineer and your credit, 60 million albums sold, and shouldn't be very hard. I gotta be honest with you, that headline right there, engineer with 60 million albums sold, should bring in clients no matter what you have set up. Make sure you have a simple website with a phone number and a location, and you can still pick and choose who you want. It's not a publicly traded company.
Right.
It's your studio, and that's, yeah. I mean,
The main thing
it's as easy as that.
Right.
Do you have something to add to that,
We
TJ?
can talk about that,
I was just trying to figure out, okay, if it's private, how do you get the clientele?
Word up.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand, because in order to get the clientele, you have to have some experience, you have to have some credibility, and the 60 million sold gives you a little credibility, but when they start asking questions, that's not sold off projects that you engineered, you know what I'm saying? So it's like you're gonna have to show them some kind of experience, and so how are you actually gonna get that to build from?
Well, I have done several albums with guys that are not known, but I mean, you can hear the quality of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the private, my thing is, doing mixes for independent labels, that kind of thing, starting out that way is what I'm trying to do, is, get a few more projects under my belt, and then.
You might even want to just ask people to let you mix some projects. You know what I'm saying? And it just on the house. And then that way you get some referrals, you get some projects that you can use to refer back to, and then you can build from there. But yeah, you gotta have something, because they gonna ask.
I got in the front row composing music for a soundtrack. You should be recording in your studio. Promote yourself.
Very well said. Brent, I know you had a question.
Yeah. So I mean, as a filmmaker, music is such a critical part of setting tone and mood and helping perpetuate the story, right? So, and I know it's different on a case by case basis, but from a budget standpoint, like what do you like? And I know you guys are music guys. What's a good percentage of a budget that should be dedicated to licensing and getting the right music for your films?
That depends on the level of talent that you're looking for.
Sure.
Beyonce's going to charge you a hell of a lot more than Alessia Cara. So you have to look at it that way. What fits the movie better also? What artist is going to help you? What artist is going to like the movie, want to be a part of it? So there's a lot of things involved in that decision making.
Sure. Good. All right.
Quinn.
I think from a perspective of matching music with movies, I tend to look for a sound that fits the story, regardless of who the artist is. Like for instance, there was a project I was developing a few years ago, and there was a song that was called Unsteady. I had heard it before it became mainstream, and I wanted to put it to that project. And no one knew who these guys were at the time. But is that something that you would suggest for projects as a way to go about it? So instead of thinking about the artist, think about the music and the sound and what it does for your project.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Like we were saying earlier, to a degree, you got to look at, is it the right fit? So that goes for an individual scene, but that also goes for, of course, the higher you go up the ladder of the artist, that you're going to have to, is it going to work with their image? Is it going to work with what they stand for? Is it going to, this scene is, you're trying to be ironic, and in the scene somebody gets killed and they're about church. You got all that stuff you got to navigate, and it's their image. And if it ends up being a big movie, like we're talking about, if it ends up being successful, then the artists and their fan base, because of social media, is going to either really be excited for them or they're going to really bash them. And that are all things to weigh. And with thinking about budgetarily, since so many people want to get in the music industry, we have to realize that this is having limited financial resources obviously is not ideal, but because of all the things that you can find easily online, you can find if you want a country song, you should be able to find one online. And if you randomly hit up some person and said, look, I'm making this movie, I need to give you exclusive rights, I can give you whatever the amount of money is, $250, but I'll have the exclusive rights in perpetuity to be able to use this song in my film, more than likely they're going to say yes. And they're not famous or anything, they're going to be happy to get that $250. And if it's a good song and if it fits and it's country and it's what you need, that's what you need to look for, rather than say, I got to get Taylor Swift, or I got to get somebody that you're not going to get unless you have 250,000, 2 million. It's just astronomical the higher you get with the caliber of artists, and all this stuff is available to find online. So it's really using the resources that you do have to your advantage, and the fact that music is so important. You want to make sure to round out your film or your project with music whenever possible, because it really adds a lot. And you hear people talk about production value. One of the main things that's going to make someone think you spent way more money on something is to have music in it, because it makes it feel like something you would watch on television, in a movie theater, or on your streaming platforms.
I'm Mike Kent. I'm working with Brent on a film. Just to piggyback on what he said, what percentage of the total movie budget is usually dedicated to the soundtrack?
It's unfortunately, there's not a solid, rigid answer for that, because the problem is, if you're doing a period piece and you want an Isley Brothers record or something, you have to pay a certain amount of money. They're not just gonna give it to you. And that, if you can find somebody, again, online that's making throwback 70s soul music that you can do for $200, cool. So what I would recommend, if you're trying to figure out what the budget should be, you need to do all that before you make your film and say, we have X amount of money, whether that's $100 or $1,000, or depending on your budget, $10,000, $20,000, and just say, this is what we have. And then you can try to reach out and allocate it accordingly. But to say how much, you have to, if you're doing film and you have a good line producer and all that, you should be able to build that in before you shoot anything, before you do anything. And then you have your contingencies that you need to have in there in case there's problems, or in case, for whatever reason, Mariah Carey's heard about your film and loves it, and she's like, oh, I'll do it, but I need $20,000, and you only had $10,000. You better figure out a way to get that extra $10,000 if you want Mariah Carey.
So we're talking about what? 4 zeros? 10,000?
No, that's not what I said. It's a scale.
To $100,000 to $1 million, depending on what your needs are.
Let me give an example. So I work with some very big supervisors in film for the music side, and every time they come to my company, even to replace a song that Paramount, companies like Paramount can't afford, they're usually replacing a song that has a $200,000 budget for each song, if it's a big name in a major film. So I'm going to say that their typical budget is about $2 to $3 million for music, because also what they do is, once the film's complete, even if they've licensed a song, they may decide that they're going to change it and swap it out for something else as the film evolves. They already paid for the license for the first song, and now they have to pay the new license for the next song. So it's not uncommon for them to spend that kind of money. A lot of times they'll come to production companies who have lesser known artists and say, look, we want to swap out this $200,000 placement for $30,000. Do you have any records that can match this. So it really is kind of, there's no set, I guess, number or value for that, but if you're looking at the bigger film companies, if they're spending that much money on music, you can kind of get an idea that you might be spending on a lower budget film anywhere from $500 a song to $5,000 a song, I would say, for an unknown artist. That's a fair fee to offer somebody, is anywhere between $500 and maybe $5,000, depending on, once again, their socials, things that they have going on. Can you promote them along with the film? There's a lot of different variables.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I have a question for you guys. How important I mean, you know, obviously music and, you know, the music business and the film business have been co-collaborating for a long time, right? But how important to you guys is it, do you see soundtracks being in films relevant in this day and age, or original music being put in films in this day and age?
Real fast. Oh, what's that?
I was gonna say, when I see a movie, the soundtrack is like 50%.
Yeah, absolutely. Drives the emotion. Yeah. Unless it's like a documentary where, you know, music is you know, sparse and scarce to the movie. But I think other than that, depending on who the film is geared towards, you have to think, like, if your film is for a younger audience, by having an artist that is either really popular or who's blowing up on social media, getting them into your soundtrack would obviously bring more viewers to that film. So I think that without that music, you're losing half the chance of getting viewers.
Right.
That's
Soren, TJ?
No, it's super important. If you guys watch a trailer, or the reason you're watching a movie, and the reason they don't make silent movies anymore is because we have the technology to make movies with sound. And the key to that is watch a trailer and put it on mute, and then watch it with the sound. It's a totally different experience. And, you know, again, just think, whether you have a film, you're doing a short film or a feature film, whether you have $1,000 budget or no budget, and you're calling in all these favors, the thing is to get everything done ahead of time is the key. So again, whether you have $100 budgeted for music in a film or you have $1,000, it doesn't matter. You just have to get the permission, get everything squared away, and get that knocked out, because the music is key. For instance, one of the new trailers, a film I'm excited to see, is The Joker. And the music in there, I don't know any of the songs that are in there. I don't know if they're real songs or if they made them for the movie or if it's just score. But the point is, the music accents, accentuates, and makes you feel a certain way. So it's a key.
Any more questions?
Yeah, I got one more.
Oh, go ahead.
Who'd be good for a horror movie?
Rob Zombie.
Regardless of your budget, you have to look at the sound. There's libraries of music that are royalty, license free, or next to free that you can find online just by a Google search. And you just have to figure out the sound. So one thing I'm saying, and I believe the other people up here are saying, is forget the artist. The artist is not what you need to focus on. You need to focus on the sound you're looking for. So if you want to have a screech like the nails on a chalkboard, you don't need Beyonce to do that. You could do that. Just go to a chalkboard, screech it and record it, and put it in your movie. Like, it's that simple. You don't have to think about that. Don't get caught up in the name of it until you're in that world. Think about the sound and the execution. This is what I want. How do I execute that? Do I need to go online? Does my friend play guitar? Whatever. It doesn't matter what the need is. Think about what you're trying to achieve and work backwards. That's how I do it, and I found whether you have a big budget at your disposal or you have no budget, you know, you got to figure it out either way. And that's, to me, the best way to do it.
Let me call on Steve. I know Steve's been waiting.
I got one question. Guys, we did a film called A Warrior's Heart a few years ago, and we had $110,000 of song licensing. But I had Steve Stewart helping me, who's the manager of Stone Temple Pilots. So for new artists and new producers, if they're not working with a sales company already, or someone like Steve, or someone like yourself already, what would you recommend in approaching the label, the publisher, publisher sync rights, label master, because again, sometimes people don't even know who to call. Right. We had we got Rascal Flatts, Regina Spektor, a few people like that, but Steve had relationships with all the labels, and so there was one song we were thinking we were going to try to re-record, but it turned out we ended up getting it. But what would you might recommend on how people, they wouldn't get to you first, but I'm just saying somebody, if they want to license just like, say, a $5,000 song.
Agencies you can contact. There's the publishing agencies, because all this stuff has to be cleared, and most of those people understand if you call a BMI or a ASCAP or these different places, they're going to refer you and tell you where to go, because and if you talk to people, it's surprising. If you ask them a question, they'll let you know. So like, hey man, I'm doing a movie and I have $1,000 budget. Like, what can I do, or who should I talk to, or what website should I look at?
We also used a guy, Alec Puro, for the score. But again, like Steve was invaluable in navigating that world. We use it also. It's for all the chain of title on the movies we see. And my other part two of this question would be, how do you feel about promotional use? Because this is something I heard in the film business. Let me explain what I mean. A lot of the trailers in Cannes and the American film market, the film markets themselves will have famous artists, but that music is not clear. Now again, what I've always heard legally, whatever, even from artists, you know what? Okay, it's a 90-second trailer, they're not selling it, it's really promotional use. You don't have to pay for that. But you actually have to pay for it for the movie, but then I hear now another argument coming out. So that's what I want to know. Okay.
There's very big examples of this where people forget that the trailer is still intellectual property, and it's still, because of YouTube and other outlets, they are actually making money off of it. So the challenge is it's moved from a purely promotional thing that doesn't generate revenue to something that actually does directly generate revenue. So now there was an instance, a friend of mine that was working on producing a film, they had to pull the trailer from the film festival because of the Writers Guild. So the person who wrote the script wasn't being compensated for the trailer. So they had to remove the whole trailer from the film festival and couldn't show it because the Writers Guild was on strike and that person hadn't done whatever. So they had to pull it. So the thing is, granted, these are what people like to call the champagne problems, and you're super successful in having all these things, but these type of stories are applicable to everyone in this room because we're all trying to get to, winning those Oscars, to doing all these great things, or winning Grammys and selling, touring the world, whatever your goals are, we all want to get there. So it's good to understand all these layers of things that you have to consider, which is why from the onset, again, whether you have a zero budget film or a $100,000 budget film, you have to get from A to Z everything in agreement, everything locked in, so that if you do get lucky and Paramount wants to pick up your film, that you are already ready and have everything locked and loaded, so that Paramount doesn't have to screw with that. They can just say, hey man, we can just write you the check, and then you handle it on your side because you've already taken care of all that, and you'd much rather have that than Paramount now all of a sudden doesn't want to ever work with you again because you didn't clear your 7 songs and you didn't pay this person and this artwork isn't right, and it's just a big mess.
Any other questions?
So my question is, just from an artist point of view, like if you're a starting off artist and you're trying to find a legitimate recording studio, what should we look for? What are some key things we should look for with that? Because anyone can make up their own recording studio, like just get a laptop ready and record some stuff. Like, what do you consider legitimate? What would be able to get through?
I mean, really, like it. We all don't have our own answer on that. It's at the end of the day, it's all about budgets. People can get a great sound out of a bedroom if they have the right setup, right mic, right plugins. You won't be able to tell. Just as an example, matter first thing they did after signing him was send him downstairs into the studio to redo Sprung. And no matter what they did and how many times they redid it or how many mixes they put on it, it never matched the original. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you classify a real studio because it has a big SSL board and big speakers and like ultimately, man, it's the sound that comes up out of there. And when you're an upstart artist, you don't have the budgets to go to the big studios, you know. So it's like with one of my artists, you know, we'll go to this little hole in the wall spot all the time, but he gets an awesome sound, and he catches a vibe there, and that's something you can't create. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't have an answer for you outside of seeing what type of product their studio puts out, and just because it's a good studio and somebody gets a good sound from it doesn't mean that you will with the engineer that you end up using for your sessions.
Yeah, I say that because I submitted my stuff to Heartbreak Records before, and they loved it. They said they loved the lyrics, they loved the sound and everything, but they just wanted more of a better quality recording for it. And they told me, like, try to find a really good professional studio locally and everything, and like see where we are, you know. That's kind of tough at this moment. So I was just always kind of thinking, like, where.
I mean, here guys in the studio.
Yeah.
I want 10% of all the billing I do for you today.
So here's the thing on that. I have this saying that I've been saying this for 20 years. You know, people would ask me, like, where did you do that on an SSL or on a NEEB? I said, no, I did it on a computer. And they said, well, how does it sound like that? I said, it's the ear, not the gear. I don't care. In my area, there's a lot of studios, but I have a lot of converts. I have people that are coming from all kinds of other studios to me. They go to the website. They listen to some examples, some work. They look at some of the credits. They read the Google reviews. There's tons of them, 5-star reviews. You could do that. You could do a little research in your area and see who's getting, like, you know, getting that popular opinion on who's getting great work done at a certain studio. Then you can go on and check their website, look at their vibe, text the person, call the person, see if, like, right off the bat the conversation is going well. And then, you know, obviously they should do the kind of music that you do. They should specialize in whatever genre it is that you work in, but never look at, like, the equipment they have. It doesn't matter in this day and age. It doesn't matter if they use Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton Live, FL Studio. No, GarageBand. Listen, I have co-writers that work on major TV shows with me that do all their own vocals in GarageBand. So I've made beats on a GarageBand on an iPhone and sold them. Like, it's like, it doesn't matter. So I think that should make it a little easier for you to kind of, like, there's no magic, anything, just go through the reviews, try to talk to the person, contact them. Obviously your price and budget has to fit, and your geographic location, and listen to some examples, see what their credits are and how long they've been in business, things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions? So we have just a few more minutes. So if you have any last questions, be sure to ask them after this one. As far as being able to, and we've already covered what it's going to take for them to come to you, and you know what you'll do. But let me ask you this: obviously, these are all independent filmmakers, right? Would you consider working on a project individually with them? You know, and let's say they didn't have a big budget, but you saw that there was passion there. You saw that there was an ability to help them with direction. Would you consider helping them with a soundtrack or a song placement, just something that would help them get a little bit further? I'm not saying for free. I'm just saying if you see something there but they don't have a big budget. Because here's the thing, guys, let me just tell you, and it was just like the gentleman said earlier, this is a rarity. This is a rarity. To have these 4 guys in Farmington, New Mexico, to have them in Albuquerque, New Mexico would be a rarity. But to have them here is a rarity. So everybody in this room after this panel, do not leave without getting their contacts or talking with them. You know, you might have some questions for them outside of that. But to answer my question, what would it take? You know, because if you have, you know, all of you guys have been approached by, you know, numerous.
All the time.
Let me tell you, the first time I met TJ, years and years and years ago. I was 12, 13 years ago. Yeah, TJ is a heavy hitter, and the one thing you can always bet on TJ is you're going to get transparency. So you don't ever have to worry about knowing where you stand. And the first time I met with TJ, he let me know real quick where I stood. But it was one of the things that I respected about him so much. And after that, we built a relationship. And there was a lot of times that I didn't talk to TJ for years, but every time I did reach out to TJ, he would give me the honest truth about, and I would send him records. And I can say that for all of these people. I have a great relationship with all of them. No, you didn't have to go there, Issy. You did not have to go there. Okay, anyway, what would it take, in your opinion?
Hold on, bro. Before you answer, throw in the minimum budget with your answer. How much would it cost for me to even approach you?
I'm going to let TJ answer this one first.
Yeah,
and then we'll go down the line.
How much is your budget?
2 or 3 million.
Come on. 646 251.
I was waiting for him to finish giving the number. But damn, I'm scared. I forgot the question.
What is your minimum?
Like your question. As far as for me, like it just is really the thing that's easiest for me might be to help with on the music side, and I'm not necessarily talking about with my artists that I manage. I have a huge pipeline of independent artists, and they're just hungry. You know what I'm saying? So it's like they're not established to the point where they're expecting this type of money or anything. They're just looking for work, some place to be able to exposure, some place to be able to say, oh yeah, my song's in that movie. Who cares if nobody get to see the movie? It's just the fact that they've been able to say something and get something from it. So like something like that's a lot easier for me and requires less time than actually working. You know what I'm saying?
How much would it cost for you to actually work?
First of all, I have to figure out the potential of what you're trying to accomplish. You probably, with your 2 or 3 million, have a little firmer grasp of what you're trying to accomplish than he is composing his own music. So you have a little bit more leeway to go out and get bigger names, and be able to market and promote those names to help you with your movie. To answer his question, I look for potential. So for me, is the potential of the movie, the potential of the music, how they can both help each other to be able to be marketed by people like me or other people who do promotion and marketing for labels. Whether it be an independent label, an independent film, doesn't make a difference. There has to be some sort of infrastructure, though, inside that company for me to want to get involved. It can't be like a one-person guy in his basement, like a mad scientist that was sitting there throwing shit up in the air. It has to be a little bit more firmer for me to be able to deal with.
So basically, you'll negotiate, like if you.
I could be a consultant. You can pay me to consult, and I'll tell you what you can and can't do, or you could pay me, and I can do. I promise you, I can do.
Okay.
Do you mind taking points on the back end then?
No. I'll take points on the back end, but you still got to pay me.
I mean, if there's potential, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, that's the key is, the other thing too is we can all provide similar and different services. So music supervision is something, working on the soundtrack is something, trying to get, artists to be in the film, even just to make a cameo, because all of a sudden, if you want, just, again, I'm friends with Exhibit, so if Exhibit, he's got 1,000 things he's doing. So for him to say, oh, this is a good script, I want to be in the movie, then you got to figure out that. And then, oh, now you want a song from Exhibit that he either has stashed or he's got to make a song because Exhibit is somebody that has high quality and high standards. So now all of a sudden he's going to want to write a song to the movie. So now he's got to wait for the movie to be done. He's got to get the script, whatever it is. Or you say, hey, write a song for this scene.
this is the scene I want you to. So it's all those type of things that I could do, and that again, there's 5 different things I could do for you on the movie. So that's also dependent on, am I gonna now help you produce the film because I'm doing 7 other things? It's like, that's all, there's layers, as they say.
I think really all of us are in like the same boat. I think we all have access to a lot of well-known talent, present and past and future, because you never know who we're working with now that's going to be the next big thing. And I think we all have the capacity to work as supervisors, but I think we've all done that. I mean, I've done that many times. I think we've all done it. Supervision. So you guys have access to, like, I think in this room right now, you have access to handle more than 50% of like the things that you don't know how to do, like at this table. At least even on the consulting end, like even Izzy was saying, like there's nothing wrong with getting someone to consult even for like a few months just to get you up and running. If you have the budget that you can afford to spend for that to gain the knowledge and then kind of run with it. As far as the points in the back end, mostly anybody that's been doing this as a career, because we go from the I love this as a hobby to I'm starting to do something with it to it becomes the full-time career, and that's what we do. Everybody wants to get paid for their time, and of course at this level, we also, if it's available or if it's the right situation, want to be involved once the film is done or the project's done with, you know, some points.
Hey, listen.
But that's all negotiable always. I mean, it just depends on who you're talking. Everything's an individual basis. There's no industry standard across the board in the music business or in the film or TV business. Deals are made every day, 13 different ways.
Right. And let me say this is called show business, not show friends.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, everybody, you know, respectfully, who is trying to be in this business wants to get paid for their time. And as a consultant, there's nothing wrong with hiring a consultant. Now, I will say for the record, every single one of these guys have turned me down more than once, yes. But it was a lesson learned for me to go out and provide, you know, a way to get their eyes, get their attention, and continue. And listen, building a relationship, that's one of the most important things too.
Number one most important thing in the entertainment business as a whole, I personally believe, is the relationships you build, because it's easy to burn relationships quickly. Yeah. And then now, you know, you start seeing the doors, you know, there's fire in each door, and you're like, where do I go now? It's like, it's nobody left. And that's how you find out when you wonder, like, what happened to that actor, or what happened to that singer? They were so popular at one time. I'm going to tell you, probably 90% of the time, it was because they got maybe a little too high on themselves, thought that, you know, it would last forever, and eventually people do say, you know, that's enough, this relationship is done.
Right.
And so you should always be mindful as you go through your journey, because there's going to be a lot of people in this room who are going to make it, and there's going to be some that aren't. I mean, it's just the way life goes. But along the way, always keep your head level. Always remember that everyone you're talking to right now has feelings. They're human beings. You know, you got to make decisions sometimes together. Like I said, deals are created every day, different ways. That's part of the relationship building. Is like, hey, look, you know, as you start to get to know somebody, you start to become more flexible with them. You start to go like, I only accept X amount of dollars for doing something, to, oh, I really like this person. You know, like I see their vision. Like this could be a good thing for both of us. I still want to get something for my time, but let me make it easier on both of us. I do it a lot.
So do I.
And then I end up having a friend for a long time, and I'm like, I'm glad that worked out as more than just business. I don't live paycheck to paycheck, so it's not like, you know, sometimes you get into situations where it's like, there are people that are coming to your life, they're doing project to project, so they may be a little bit more like the hard sell on you, like, and hold out and see if they get what they want from you. And then there's other people who are like, you know what, I got enough good things going on where it's like, this one I can consider this like my pet, but at the same time, don't take care of me for my time, but I kind of see where this is going, and I think I can help them too.
To echo his sentiments, I'm a staunch supporter of independent artists. You never know who that next B.O.B will be, or the next Lil Wayne will be. And I charge fairly. I'm not going to charge you the same money consulting that I would have Puff Daddy. If you come to me and I believe in your project, I believe in what you're trying to accomplish, I get in on the ground floor with a lot of independent artists from scratch who have no social media, no followings, nothing. And I build plans and implement plans to help them build that audience and eventually go on to succeed to make more money, so then I can charge them more money.
It's all relative.
Go ahead.
What advice would you have for a student who's getting their degree and wants to engineer, write, or anything music for movies?
I'll give him Mig's number.
I get this a lot. Here's the deal with the engineering thing. Okay, so I personally didn't go to school for engineering. There was no such thing really. There were like local courses that you might have a local studio engineer that was offering like a 5 or 6 week course. I learned just by doing, and so I get a lot of internship emails with like resumes and like I'm in Full Sail or I'm in this or and I hope I don't offend anybody, but this is just my honest thought. Is like why they charge $30,000 to $60,000 those engineering schools, and they go, oh, because I want to get I want to get my diploma in engineering. I'm like, I can guarantee you, I've actually accepted more people in my door as like assistants because of their talent, not because they went to a school. I've actually had people who had gone to school and had the paper that said they went to like a certain engineering school, and I'll leave them in a room for an hour and say, here, you got the computer, you have Pro Tools, you have Logic, you have this. Open something up, start working on the session, and let me see what you have. I'll come back an hour later, they're looking at the computer like, I don't really know where to begin.
But what if they have all that?
If they have all that?
If they can do all that too.
So that's you, like you could do that?
My brother.
Your brother? Yeah, it's not, what I'm saying is the talent is what's important. Not just from an artist standpoint, but even like on the engineering standpoint, it's the talent, it's not the paper.
Yeah.
If he's doing that and he's like going to school, then good for him, if that's what he wants to do. But I've told quite a few people like, don't. Learn from somebody like even myself, like if they're local. And maybe they want to do an internship where they'll do a little work for me and then I'll teach them in return actual techniques that I use on records that will be coming out.
Yeah.
I didn't learn from a book, I can only teach what I know. So I've seen a clear difference between the teaching from a book versus the teaching from an engineer. Mm-hmm. Like I have a friend named Shelly Yakis. Shelly was the guy who did the recording and engineering for the Big Blue Oyster Cult, the More Cowbell song that everybody knows.
More cowbell.
More Cowbell, right? What's crazy is like, I learned one technique from him. We're just friends, but I learned one technique from him. I learned one technique from another engineer. Mm-hmm. I learned another from someone else. I learned from YouTube over the years. I learned from Googling ideas. And then just doing and failing. But I haven't, what I'm trying to say is, if he's good, and it's regardless of the degree.
Yeah.
See Mr. Mig for registration for Mig University.
I did think about it, but that's a lot of undertaking.
Okay, everybody, that's going to continue our panel. So at this time, like I said, feel free to talk to the guys individually, and let's thank these guys for coming out.
Thank you guys for coming out.